Absolute value inequality. This is basically an inequality dealing with the absolute value concept. So we really have something like the absolute value of some number. And this could be less than or greater than, as long as it's an inequality, some given value. And what I'm trying to figure out is what values will make that true. Now, for those people who already know about absolute value, you know that this is basically going to be some number. Could be a positive, could be a negative, but we're looking for how far away from zero is that number. So it's got to be a positive value that comes out. Now, we could sit here and try and guess and check and plug in numbers, but the real problem to this is that could take a long time with an inequality. So here's how I do this problem. There's other ways to approach it, but this is the way that I teach my students when I do it, which is we're going to look at it from the standpoint of take it the way you see it first. So x less than 5. Exactly how it looks. Read it just like that. There's one of our solutions. Now we're going to look at the other part of this. So I'm going to take the x still, what's inside, and now this outside part right here is going to all get sort of reversed, meaning we're going to switch the signs. So instead of it being less than, it's now going to be greater than. And instead of positive 5, it's going to be negative 5. Okay, so really, there's our second one. Now the question on these is this an and or is this an or problem? Meaning, do they go together or do they go away from each other? So let's kind of look at an example of what that looks like. So if I looked at a number line right here, I just looked at some quick little number lines. My first one says I want everything less than the number 5. So open circle, and everything less than that would go this direction. This one says I want everything greater than negative 5. So let's say this is negative 5, and I want an open circle and everything going this way. All right, well, what we're really looking for is what numbers work for both of these. So where's the overlap? Well, that really happens right here. That's the only numbers that really satisfy both of these. So what that means is our final answer really looks like this. It's got to be numbers that are basically bigger than this and less than that. So we want it to be less than 5, but greater than negative 5. Okay, so really, when we can do this, this is basically called a compound. We'll talk about that later. But when we can put these together, this is an AND situation. Okay, and we can always tell that from the very beginning. If it's a less than, it will be AND. If it's a greater than, it will be an OR. Let's look at one more. So let's look at a problem like the absolute value of x plus 2 greater than 5. So I know because this is starting as a greater than, it's going to be an OR, which means my answers are going to go away from each other, but we'll prove that in a second here. We want to always check. So first time I write it, it's going to look exactly like this looks like. X plus 2 greater than 5. The second time I write it, it's going to be x plus 2, but again, the outside piece here is going to be reversed, so it's going to be less than negative 5. Now we'll go ahead and solve. So subtract 2, and this is what we've been talking about. We always want that to be a 0 there. So this will become an x greater than 3. Okay. And on this side, we're going to go ahead and subtract 2 from both sides. And again, that will cancel out. And we'll end up with an x less than negative 7. So there's our two answers. Now what does that look like when we look at a number line really quick? Let's kind of look at just what this looks like. So again, we'll just sort of quickly sketch these. So x greater than 3. Okay, well if that's our 3, open circle, everything greater than it, we'll go that way. In this case, we want everything less than negative 7. So that means we'd be at negative 7. We want everything less than that. So we don't really have situations where they're both going to work. It's not an and. It's either this or this. It's got to be one or the other, but it can't be both. So this is an or situation. So we could say then our final answer would be x is less than negative 7 or x is greater than 3. Notice on the last one, let's go back up really quick and look. This one, if I looked at it, it would solve this one and this one. That value would satisfy both. This one is either this side or this side. So that's our final solution. Absolute value inequalities just really deals with looking at values that will plug into the absolute value and still satisfy that inequality.